The right thinks that the left is in a very different place with free speech than they have been before, and they're not wrong. They're not wrong. This is arrogant. You don't punish somebody. It would be like if we stopped Henry Ford from making the cars because we didn't like what
but can you take one anecdotal example? One idiot, right? Truly an idiot to stop.
This is not an idiot. This is someone with power. Commissioner Carol Hart saying, we're dealing with a company, the head of which has aggressively injected himself into the presidential race and made it clear what his point of view is. Yes, because he lives in America, and he can do that. It has nothing to do with this.
So this is interesting. On Friday night, Bill Maher had both Mark Cuban and Joe Scarborough on his show, which is notable because both of those characters are complete and total shills for Kamala Harris. Unlike Bill, who sometimes wants to call it down the middle, Mark Cuban and Joe Scarborough will never criticize anything that Kamala Harris does. They will defend her no matter what. Even when Mark Cuban was confronted on the capital gains tax question and said, hey, look, Kamala Harris's policies will actually be really bad for business, all Mark Cuban did was make more excuses. And those different sentiments came to a head when Bill started to talk about the issue of free speech and how Democrats have exercised some very dangerous rhetoric when it comes to Elon Musk, when it comes to the First Amendment. And predictably, you will hear even more excuses from both of these characters, but it is certainly an interesting panel to say the least. We'll react to it here today. So folks, do us a big favor before we get into this. If you are enjoying the content, be sure to hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And why should you subscribe? Because you hitting that red button goes a long way in ensuring we can keep bringing you these videos. It is completely free. We are on the path to 400,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Can we hit it? Well, we can do it with your support. Hit that red button. And with that said, let's get into this. Bill Maher starts calling out the censorship and the dangerous rhetoric when it comes to Democrats responding to Elon Musk getting involved in the election. And let's hear what the cope of Mark Cuban and Scarborough here is going to be.
Commissioner Carol Hart saying, we're dealing with a company, the head of which has aggressively injected himself into the presidential race and made it clear what his point of view is. Yes, because he lives in America, and he can do that. It has nothing to do with this. And, you know, the right thinks that the left is in a very different place with free speech than they have been before, and they're not wrong. They're not wrong.
Which, first of all, right out of the gate here is completely true. The cope I've heard by Democrats is just to basically call us crazy. You guys are conspiracy theorists. Nobody is against free speech. Kamala Harris is not against the First Amendment. Oh, really? Well, before we continue this, really quickly, for context, let's play some of Kamala, some of Tim Walz, some of Hillary Clinton, and many others in their own words talking about how dangerous free speech in the First Amendment actually is. And yes, it is fair to say free speech, literally one of the most fundamental cornerstones of that so-called American democracy they care so much about, is on the line in this election. Let's remind ourselves.
We will hold social media platforms accountable for the hate infiltrating their platforms because they have a responsibility to help fight against this threat to our democracy. And if you profit off of hate, if you act as a megaphone for misinformation or cyber warfare, if you don't police your platforms, we are going to hold you accountable.
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrent.
So look, that's the important thing to understand is when we say free speech is on the line in this election, we're not exaggerating. We're not taking the minor comments of some random Democrat influencer on social media and saying that's what the Democrat Party wants to do. No, that is, first of all, Kamala Harris saying openly, she's calling for government intervention on social media platforms to censor, in other words, things she does not like. Okay, so just destroy the First Amendment. Tim Walz goes so far as to say there is no First Amendment guarantee to misinformation or hate speech, which first of all, there literally is, okay? That is part of the First Amendment. You are allowed to misinform or say hateful things, but even that in mind, we also know both of those things are just code words for whatever sentiments that the Democrats don't like. And then lastly, you had Hillary Clinton there calling for people who, again, spread propaganda, in other words, disagree with the Democrat Party, to either be civilly or criminally prosecuted. That is right. Being thrown in jail for free speech. That is what the Democrats are running on in this election. This is not a small thing. Like, these are all things that their ticket has said openly. So with that in mind, as Joe Scarborough, as Mark Cuban tried to downplay the Democrat war against free speech, keep all three of those clips in mind. All right, let's get back into this.
This is arrogant. You don't punish somebody. It would be like if we stopped Henry Ford from making the cars because we didn't like what
but can you take one anecdotal example? One idiot, right? Truly an idiot to stop.
This is not an idiot. This is someone with power.
An idiot with power is not unusual.
Okay, but that's right. No, but having power matters.
Well, let's talk about why. We've talked about entrepreneurs and what makes America great. You know what makes our economy, what sustains our economy? The rule of law. And that's what I believe is at stake at this election. We want a fair and equitable approach to the rule of law. The great thing about America is an idiot makes a decision like that based on politics instead of based on what their job is. You can take it to the courts. The courts will overturn it, and I guarantee you they're gonna have that decision overturned, and they're gonna have to find another reason, a better reason, a more relevant reason to deny.
And he'll learn a harder lesson. He'll just move more of his production and more of his launches somewhere else, to Florida or to Texas,
exactly.
So already you hear Mark Cuban and Joe Scarborough. Essentially what they're talking about here is they're making excuses for the fact that objectively, ever since Elon Musk bought Twitter and has started speaking out in favor of Donald Trump, the government has harassed him, right? They've tried to use the SEC and all these things to mess with Twitter. They tried to make it more difficult for him to get contracts when it comes to SpaceX, Tesla. I think they're investigating Starlink. They wouldn't even let him deliver to hurricane disaster areas. And the excuse that they're making is, oh, well, it's just not really a big deal, you know? Same with free speech, by the way. Mark Cuban says, oh, that's just one random idiot. No. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are the people running for the presidency and vice presidency right now, and neither of them believe in the First Amendment. You want to talk about dangerous precedents for American democracy? You would think that should be one of them. But anyways, let's keep listening.
And they'll learn the hard way.
But it's just the attitude that I find scary. That they're far too willing to stifle freedoms, including speech, for the sake of safety or misinformation, sometimes which is coming from everybody. It's, no one has a monopoly on it. Or just power.
You're saying nobody
it's
has
just
a
power.
monopoly on it. Come on. That's some moral relativism right there.
I said nobody has a monopoly.
You said nobody has a monopoly on it, but that's like saying nobody has a monopoly on being a billionaire. He's got that monopoly up here. I mean, he's got more money than us. A lot more money than us. So,
I don't get the.
You don't get it?
I don't know what point you're making.
No, I don't get what point Joe Scarborough is making either. Like, what is he talking about? It doesn't even make any sense. By the way, if you want to talk about who has a monopoly on things like speech or institutional power or whatever, it's not Trump and his supporters, right? The I would call it most accurately, like the neoliberal establishment, like the one that Joe Scarborough represents. They're the ones with the media power, most of the technological power. Elon has sort of broken that dam, challenged it a little bit, but still, most of the control of the information comes from the left-wing establishment. But again, I think that's what he's saying. The overall point, I still have like no clue what Joe is even trying to get at here.
You're saying it's both sides, isn't it?
Well,
there is no doubt.
There's no misinformation.
There's some disinformation from the left, but comparing it to what Donald Trump spews out every day, every week, comparing it to what Elon Musk is spewing out, unfortunately, on X, you sound like Brett Stevens right now, with all due respect. It's a joke. That's a real time.
And you sound like him, who looks like Rachel Maddow.
saying.
I've never argued with that. I've never argued that of a false equivalency. I just said there is misinformation from both sides.
Well, sorry.
No, I lived through COVID. Don't tell me there wasn't misinformation.
But there's a difference between...
I lived through stupid policies based on bad information and stifled information.
intent matters.
That's what Zuckerberg said. He said they were forcing us not to put out...
But intent matters, right? Even back then, they were trying to save lives, even if they did it the wrong way.
Okay,
but here with this lady,
okay.
there's no good intent. She's just trying to prove her point. If you get it wrong, trying to do the right thing...
Okay.
That is the most ridiculous, like, honestly, dystopian thing I've ever heard. Mark Cuban, by the way, this guy is just completely going insane. But it's basically okay when the left gets things wrong or, you know, totally implements mass authoritarianism in America because their intentions are good. They were trying to save lives. Okay, Mark, don't you think the right wing could say the exact same thing? Because that's how we feel about our policies, right? You know, we're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to save lives. Our intent is what matters. So if you're a liberal who disagrees with right-wing policies on immigration or tax reform or foreign policy or whatever it is, well, how can you disagree? We're trying to save lives. We're trying to make people better. We're trying to do good intentions. Like, seriously, that's Mark Cuban's excuse for the authoritarian overreaches when it came to COVID. They had good intentions in mind, which, by the way, you don't even know that, okay? You think that because that's the justification they gave publicly, okay? The right wing could do the same thing and say, oh, we're trying to do this, you know, it's for the good of everyone. It's for your own good, right? But the truth of the matter is that's an incredibly authoritarian and dystopian way to view the world. And by the way, just straight up, it's not an excuse, okay? Yeah, we're censoring the First Amendment. We're throwing out the Constitution. We're throwing out a cornerstone of an actual quote unquote healthy American democracy, but it's with good intentions. You know, it was for public safety. We got to stop misinformation. That's why we're censoring everyone we disagree with. Really, Mark? Do you believe we are that stupid? I don't even think you are that stupid, if I'm being honest. I think you're just trying to make any excuse in the book for the Democrats at this point because, I don't know, maybe you have something to gain. I'm just saying, I don't know. There's like a reason why he suddenly is so attached to the Democrats, or some have speculated it's really because Donald Trump started ignoring his phone calls or didn't recognize who he was years ago, and he just has this man-child basically feud with him. I have no idea, but it's completely ridiculous. And by the way, final thing here to address the point that Joe Scarborough was trying to make about a false equivalency between the left and right when it comes to free speech or misinformation. Actually, you're absolutely right. There is no false equivalency because the left-wingers are the ones with the power to censor those who they disagree with, and they're actively doing it. And Donald Trump and the right wing are not doing those things. So it's true. The censorship, the war on free speech, and ultimately the war on democracy that you guys care so much about is coming from your side, not ours. Okay? It is what it is. The one social media platform owned by a right-winger does not censor the left wing. Does not censor political speech on the opposing side. Anyways, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Do you agree with Bill Maher that the left is headed in a very dangerous direction when it comes to free speech? Obviously, the answer is yes. But what do you think of the pathetic excuses made by these characters? Okay, Mark Cuban, Joe Scarborough. It's just pathetic. That said, be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.